Hi friends, I'm Joe Hopkins, and this is 5 minutes to make sense of the Bible. This week we're focusing on 2 Samuel chapters 15 through 20 plus Psalm 3. This short reflection is especially meant for folks who are reading the books of Samuel as part of the Life and Times of King David reading program at Streetsville United Church. But even if you're not participating in the program, please listen on, dear friends. Here's a summary of these chapters. We begin with a conspiracy led by one of King David's sons, Absalom, to take over his father's throne. Over the course of 4 years, Absalom ingratiates himself with anyone who comes to Jerusalem to settle disputes. And then when he judges the time to be right, Absalom leads his newly loyal conspirators to declare him king over the people of Israel. When David hears of his son's treachery, he immediately flees the royal city, leaving only 10 of his mistresses to look after the palace. Mercenaries loyal to David follow him out of Jerusalem while the residents weep. However, David arranges for the Ark of the Covenant, a few priests, and an undercover spy to remain in the royal city while David and the rest of his supporters go into exile. Let's switch to the book of Psalms for a little bit and check out Psalm 3, another psalm that is attributed to David. The preface in the NRSV translation says that David wrote this psalm, quote, when he fled from his son Absalom, unquote. However, the text of Psalm 3 never mentions Absalom by name, only that foes have risen against him, and still the author trusts God to sustain him. Now back to 2 Samuel. As David and his supporters flee to the east of Jerusalem, they encounter mixed responses. Some folks provide food and wine to David and his entourage, while others curse David. And David seems to see God's providential hand at work through it all. Meanwhile, Absalom is establishing himself as king in Jerusalem, which apparently includes having sex with David's mistresses. Then Absalom seeks guidance about what to do about his father in exile, and he receives competing counsel. Absalom's loyal counselor tells him to take a smallish group of soldiers to pursue and kill David and bring the rest of the people back to Jerusalem. However, the spy whom David left in the city somehow convinces Absalom to lead his army in person to pursue David, knowing that this will lead to Absalom's downfall. And then the counselor who is loyal to Absalom gets so upset that he kills himself. So the armies of Absalom and David meet on a battlefield north of Jerusalem, and David's forces win the battle. As Absalom is fleeing the battle, he gets caught in the branches of a tree, and one of the commanders of David's army kills him. Messengers of the army deliver news of the victory and the death of Absalom to David, and David is overwhelmed with grief for the loss of his son. David slowly returns to Jerusalem and rewards his supporters and reconciles with his adversaries. But there is still division between the tribe of Judah, who has supported David, and the other tribes of Israel, who aren't so sure about accepting David as their ruler again. A man from Sheba of the tribe of Benjamin, the tribe of the former King Saul, led another rebellion against David, but David's army pursues the rebels to the far north of the Israelite territory and traps them in a city there. When David's army begins a siege of the northern city, the residents of that city behead Sheba, the leader of the rebels. And so this season of the Davidic Game of Thrones finally comes to an end. Let's get reflective with a few questions. Question 1. Remember that Absalom took revenge on his brother for the violence against his sister back in chapter 13. How do you think that those acts of violence among David's children may have led to Absalom's coup d'etat? Question 2. There is some serious spycraft in this story of Absalom versus David. What are some of your favorite spy stories, either fictional or fact? And 3. Most of the text of these chapters focus on military action. How do you think the many civilians of the story coped with the Civil War? What can you do to help civilians caught in wars today? So there, 5 minutes to make sense of the Bible. I hope that you'll continue to read the rest of the books of Samuel and notice some details that pique your curiosity. God often tries to catch our attention by piquing our curiosity. And as good as reading the Bible alone is, remember that we make the most sense of the Bible when we read the Bible together. Peace, friends.